Kelly. First of all, I want to thank you for choosing to come with me to get a reading today. Honestly, I really appreciate it. There's a few people out there who are willing to read people's cards or tea leaves, or there's psychics out there, there's people that read crystal balls and all sorts. So the fact you've come to me, I appreciate, and I mainly hope that I can give you what you want today and you hear what you want. And even if you sometimes do end up hearing something that you don't really necessarily want to hear, I hope that it helps you. Because as you may know, I don't want to do anything else but give you the advice that you need to hear the most. Sometimes it's not about what we want to hear, it's about what we need to hear. So that being said, I'm gonna have a little shuffle, and what I'm gonna do for you is a 4-corner spread reading, and then I'm gonna move on into a Celtic cross spread, which is a 10-card spread, as I feel like both of those readings are quite general based and you did want a general reading, and also they give me a good idea on literally everything going on in your life. It covers the people around you, yourself, your past, your future, advice. Righty-ho. So starting off, I've also got 2 other decks here which I may end up using, but I never really know until I get into the reading. So we'll just use the deck that I've started with for now and kind of see what happens, go with the flow. So I'll be using this. It's the work, home, relationships and money spread to give me a good old idea of how things are gonna go in those 4 different areas for you. Your cards are literally flying about all over the place. They don't always do that. I mean, they do that quite a lot, but not as much, not anywhere near as much as today. Okay, you've got the anxiety card. So there's a lot of worries and there's a lot of restless and sleepless nights about something to do with your home life. Home life is anything outside of work. It can be your physical home situation, it can be your lifestyle. It's wherever you are most comfortable, so it's whatever you call home. It can be related to the people you live with, so even though it's not in the relationships section, it can be the people you live with. But I'm getting a lot of restless kind of energy and worry and anxiety, overthinking. I probably will pull up a clarifier card to kind of get under what this could possibly be talking about. But the main thing with this card is that the majority of the time it's never as bad as what this person is making it out to be. It's all in the mind, it's all in the head, specifically because she's got her face covered here, meaning she's not actually seeing anything. She's covering her eyes, therefore she's not seeing the situation for what it actually is. So the good news about this card, even though it's black, even though it's got loads of swords, and even though it looks scary, it's not as bad as it is. And most of the time when people get this card, it's making a mountain out of a molehill, and it's also not being very practical, not being very active on the matter. So even though she's worried about something to do with the home, she's probably not doing the most amount she can do about it, because of the fact that there's so much energy in this card which is basically wasted, because she's using that energy to cry, to worry, and she's up at night. Therefore in the day when you've got to be productive and get things done to maybe improve the situation, she's very tired, she's very lethargic, she hasn't slept much that night, and the bit she did sleep wasn't probably very helpful, because you know, when you're worried about something, when life's a little bit down, you kind of in your subconscious you think about it as well. So you know, I'm seeing like a lack of sleep, or maybe just extra anxiety around the home life for you. We'll keep pulling out the rest of the cards, and then I'm going to pull out some clarifiers. And can I just say, work is goodness, work is obviously the opposite side of home. Anything that you're either getting paid to do, or it can be work as in like school work, college work, uni work. It's anything along the lines of work. I know this sounds really stupid that I'm saying this, but people do tend to ask sometimes, so I'm just going to make sure I go over that. So you had the Tower card. I kept seeing this card while I was shuffling, so I had a feeling it was going to come out. But 2 black cards. I mean, they're not my favorite color to come through on a deck, but the Tower card represents sudden dramatic change, usually brought on by something small usually, not always, but the actual act which took part in order for the Tower card to happen doesn't generally need to be a massive thing. Sometimes it's just a small cause of coincidence or something, because basically the Tower card is mostly represented by that bolt of lightning up there, and really a strike of lightning isn't very big, it's quite small actually, but it does huge damage. And also lightning is very unexpected, and it's very sudden. It causes a lot of a disruption, and then it kind of leaves. And the biggest part of this card also is the people falling out of the Tower. It does look very scary, but there's always a positive side of each card. Like I said, for this one, the thing she's worrying about here doesn't often line up with the way things actually are. For instance, that's the positive side of that card, because, you know, I think it's much more refreshing to know that maybe, like, I'm not seeing the situation clearly, which does go to say, by the way, I will go back to this in a minute actually, because I've got a few things that just popped into my head. But the same with this card is sometimes this is about breaking things down. This is like, oh, there's a really cool quote I saw the other day. Sometimes the universe needs to shaken you to awaken you. And I think that's the best kind of quote that stands behind the Tower card, because these people are being like thrown out of their tower, which basically represents their whatever this position's in. It can represent home life, being pushed out of the home, work, being pushed out of work, relationships, being thrown out of relationship, like broken up with, money. I mean, obviously that's like becoming in debt all of a sudden or something like that. So basically it's being pushed out of familiarity, and even though it sucks and the shitty things we go through in life hurt, and the fall won't be very pretty. In fact, there's some Tower cards in tarot where there's people literally dead at the bottom, like hanging on a spike. My one doesn't have that one. It's supposed to be quite brutal. There's even fire happening. So basically what this is trying to represent is this Tower is going to crumble down to the ground, and these people are going to be left onto the floor. I don't think like dying. I don't like the deck that represents them dying, because I don't think it's about people dying in the slightest. I think it's about building up new foundations, starting again from the ground up. Like I said, sometimes the universe needs to shaken you to awaken you, because although we think shitty things happen for no reason, I'm a firm believer in everything happening for a reason. I know some people find that very like difficult to understand, which I understand as well, because I'm quite an open-minded person. But I truly do feel like sometimes things just need to go a little bit chaotic in order to push us into the right direction that we need to be in. Sometimes when we're going down our own lane, we're so determined to get somewhere and we really want it to happen. Sure, we get a few drawbacks, which I think will kind of help you prove how much you want something. But when something like happens enough to shake you out of that path and like blow you away in a different direction, that is the direction I think the universe is trying to push us in. All that being said, trying to put a positive light on everything, when it comes to work, I feel like something quite unexpected, chaotic might happen. I want to challenge you to kind of embrace it and listen to it, take in the signs of what that could possibly be meaning to you in the near future. I don't think it's going to be anything like, I'm not saying it's going to be life-changing. It's going to be a little bit of like a whoa. It's going to be a bit of a whirlwind. You're going to be like, oh, here we go kind of thing. But I want you to listen to any like signs, or try and see it from a different perspective, in the sense of realizing what it might be trying to push, where it's trying to push you, or try and see it in a way where you can be like, okay, well that wasn't correct for me, that wasn't right for me, and it's a fresh start. See it as like building from the ground up. Like, okay, that tower crumbled, but it's fine, we can work on something else. This could be referring to like a whole new career path, a whole new work area that you've once wanted to go into, and this coincidence has made you kind of step back into that. It's stepping into something unknown, new. It might be new territory, but without a doubt it's something that you haven't built on properly before, and it's something different from what you're kind of working on now. Also, the thing that I said I was going to go back onto with this card, this is a very isolated card. She's on her own, she's not sharing her problems, she's in her bed, she's up at night crying, probably because no one can see her crying if she's up at night crying, because when you're asleep at night or when you're in bed at night, you're on your own a lot of the time. So this is about also expanding that, making... Oh, okay. Sorry, the door went. So this is about expanding that and making sure that you vocally talk to people about any worries you've got, for two reasons. One, because obviously it's good to air out problems. It's healthier, and to keep things up inside your head all the time can be mentally quite damaging. And another main thing about that is sometimes it's good to hear other people's perspective. People like getting tarot readings because it's kind of like the same as that, really, because I'm able to see your situation from a fresh pair of eyes outside of the situation. Therefore I can kind of like advise you what to do as somebody who's not stuck in the situation and kind of like overwhelmed by everything. And it's the same kind of thing as that, really, seeing someone who can maybe hear your issues to do with anything in the home life and kind of say it as it is and say, you know, actually this is something that you can do, or have you tried this? It's not as bad as you're making it out to be. And also another thing, actually, which I will add to that, I said 2 but I'm going to say 3. I've always found when I voice my problems, or when I voice anything I feel, like an opinion about something, it helps me hear it in a way that sounds a lot differently than when it's in my head. So if I was to say to Adam, for instance, like, if I noticed that he was quite quiet recently and I jump to conclusions and think it means that he's cheating on me and he's not happy in the relationship anymore, which is a valid feeling. If I felt that, then sure. But me going to him and saying, like, I'm worried because you're very quiet, and I know that you've been stressed recently because of work, and like moving house is quite stressful, but it got me worrying about the fact that you're like unhappy with me. And then hearing my own voice saying that, I realized a more kind of practical reason behind it. The house move, job being stressful. You know, it sounds, you can assess the feeling a bit more when you can hear it, if that makes any sense. You can kind of digest it, is what I'm saying, a bit better than you can when it's just all in your head. I don't know, that's just some word of advice, and my chair is making funny noises. Whoa, okay, relationships. We've got the loveliest card. This is the card of abundance. This is happy families, lots of generations of people, animals, and it's the money card, it's the pentacle card. So it's about being wealthy and healthy and happy, and there's also nature involved. So there's an old person, there's young people, there's kids, there's adults, there's dogs. So it's all the generations and all kinds of types of spirit around you. So this is a very family orientated card. So I feel like it's probably talking to your family a bit more, talking about your family a bit more. It could also be like love, and it could be friendships and stuff. But this is a very family orientated card. It's about secure foundations. It's about commitment. It is about comfort. It's very much about being comfortable and being secure around a certain amount of people and having them as your kind of security blanket. And there's a strong bond with this card. I, as a Cancerian, likes this card because it is very family orientated, but it also is called the comfort card. So it's not exactly a very exciting card. It might be saying that there is lack of kind of challenge there anymore, maybe lack of like a drive, a desire to do something. And it's interesting because you've got such a good vibe and good feeling about in the relationship kind of aspect, and then when it comes to home you are worrying. So if I'm seeing this in your relationships and I'm seeing this about worrying, you might feel possibly maybe an outsider when it comes to this. Like you might be quite you might feel quite empowered around your family. You might feel at home around certain people, specific people. Maybe inside there's a lot of built up energy, however, internally. So I will say, like, you've got good people around you. I feel like you've got many people and many generations around you with different forms of like experience and different life stories that can help you in your situation if you really, really need it. Sometimes as well, you get comfort cards like this against something like this to kind of say, remember what we were saying earlier, sometimes we need to be shaken to be awakened. Sometimes we can be so comfortable in our little area that we feel like maybe we shouldn't change other aspects in our life. Like, you kind of want to hold on to as much of everything as you can, and that can be the same, that can apply into work as well. But on the plus side, this is a very materialistic card because it is the Pentacle suit. There are other suits in tarot that are much more love based and emotional based, such as the Cups, but because this is based around finance, I would say sometimes there's a lot of union based on material security and benefits without love. So it's not, it doesn't necessarily need to be like a very happy, lovely and rich relationship filled family. Sometimes it can be like benefiting on somebody, from somebody else, and that might be why the Tower card comes into work. You might have to do that, you might have to do that now, you may have to do that in a little bit, because this is future stuff coming through, so you might have to do that for a little while. Sometimes it's the inheritage card, so it can literally mean receiving money from somebody in your family. All in all, the word family is very prominent, I think, in your life for whatever reason right now, or will be. Sorry, I keep saying now, but this is looking into the future. And I also feel that there's something about family life right now which has a reason to come through. Maybe there's some form that like I said, there's always a positive side to a negative card. This is a very positive card, but there can be some negative annotations to it, alternatives to it, and that's important to mention because I don't want to just make all the more negative looking cards positive. It's all about having balance between every single card. So there could be some form of burden when it comes to relationships. It's really, I feel like with this, it's about you asking yourself what role that your family play to you, and be really honest about it, like whether it's a negative thing or a positive, you know, whether relying on people financially is a good thing really, truly, deep down, or not. Whether having to care for someone in your family, for example, is a positive or a negative. Like, it's just assessing your relationship with family right now and what this could possibly be speaking to you about. But I am going to pull out some clarifiers for every single card I've pulled out for you, because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's needed because some of this stuff has been a little bit difficult to comprehend. Sometimes cards are very easy to interpret, other times not so much. We will pull out your money card now, see what has to come through. Money, you have the Page of Swords. So the Page of Swords, he is a bit about speaking having his piece to say, standing his ground, being a bit defensive, and he's the Swords. So Swords is about speaking, being truthful, getting to the heart of the matter, slicing straight to the middle, and he's the Page of Wands, so he's not necessarily the most mature about doing that. Sometimes this sort of energy can be a little bit like aggressive energy, because I mean, he looks quite that way. Like, he looks like he's trying to hide his sword from somebody, but at the same time he looks like at any moment now he could start swiping that in front of him. And there are also clouds represented in this card, and any clouds in a card can sometimes just mean a bit of fog, a bit of unclear air, unclear energy that needs to be you know, removed from the situation. A little bit of a warning. It's kind of saying be careful. It's kind of saying don't make any assumptions unless you particularly know something about money right now. And it's also about not pretending that you know something that you don't, and seek advice. Don't be afraid to seek advice from experts who do, and listen to what, I guess, successful and rich people, I don't really like using the word rich, but kind of get advice from other people who are in a better financial situation, and also who are experts in it, who have educated themselves about it. Usually getting this in any sort of future position, whether it's money or not, can just literally represent you currently feeling quite locked down and restrained right now, because this is about finding your freedom. This is him kind of wanting to be free, and he's worked for getting on top of the hill that he's at amongst all that freedom. And it's about not expecting the benefits of changing your life to come without those kinds of things that he's done for himself, the hardships in life, which goes to show, I think that like talks a lot about the Tower card you've had and the Nine of Swords. So he also acts quickly and swiftly, because the sword suit is all about quick, sudden like action, and also doing it alone might be your best kind of course of action here, because once again with the clouds, they sort of represent being clouded by other people of some sort. So sometimes it's good to make these sort of decisions on our own. And obviously I spoke about this card particularly being the opposite of that. You need to speak up about that. But remember these are two different categories in your life. Home things need to be spoken about, possibly with those people who are close to you right now. But when it comes to money, depending on your personality, the type of person you are can kind of determine whether this is a negative really and a positive completely. Because if you are the type of person who puts in a lot of work, who puts in all of the action, who dedicates a lot of time, has a lot of energy, enthusiasm, then this card will be working in your favor, because you'll find yourself in his space. However, if you're the type to kind of let other people do your work, let other people get on with the responsibilities that you actually have for yourself, then you won't be rewarded as much as they would be. He's also not about waiting for miracles to happen. This is about putting in the action. And work and money readings obviously go hand in hand. And I feel like both of the things I said about both of these cards go really well together, because after this happens at work, you can't really expect the wind to give you a new tower, right? You can't stand on the top of that hill and wait for it to happen and kind of say, well, where is it? This is about putting in the craft and work to have something manifest and have something be made, even if it is from the ground up. In fact, he might even be on top of that hill looking over at the land, planning where to plant his new tower. He might be plotting his next big move, and that will work in your favor only if you're putting in the craft. If you're doing anything bad and sketchy, the same thing will come back to you. Not saying you are, but the thing is with him is it's kind of like a mirrored card. So what he puts in, he kind of gets out. So if he does a bad job, he's not going to get anything good out of that. Which also links to him being a truthful card, because it's about the swords. Now is a good time if there's anything related to work life where you've got to be honest about something. If you're ever asked anything in the near future to do with a promotion or a job interview or anything to do with financial stuff, don't lie, be honest. This is an honesty card, so that's something that's probably important to you. We'll pull out some clarifiers now, and I'm going to pull them out using my learner deck, and this is a very nice way to kind of give us some keywords to focus in on, such as fire, such as the devil, such as self-reflection. It cuts it down to a very specific pinpoint word, and I like that, because sometimes, especially if you're confused about what the heck I'm talking about, sometimes it can be very overwhelming to like work out what specifically the tarot is trying to talk to in your life, especially if you've got a lot going on as well. Home, mixing with the Nine of Swords, we have the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords in the other deck, I mean, this one's very simply represented as a cloud, but the Knight of Swords in the original deck, he is a very driven man. He's a man or a woman on a mission, and he's the type of person he's the type of person who, once they have their mind set on something, they're kind of fixated on that and nothing else but that. He's a very inspiring person who kind of like has his eyes set on something, and he is able to achieve his goals through that. But sometimes obviously that does mean acting too rashly, and acting before thinking things through can usually put us in sticky situations. So this could represent somebody who's not very aware of some potential challenges or issues that might stand in your way, and you might be prone to rushing things or cutting corners to get things done quickly, or even like pursue a certain goal and then later on realize that it's a dead end or not truly what you thought it to be, or something like that. And you know, sometimes a little bit of preparation, a little bit of planning can go a whole way. So even though there is much inspiration when it comes to making the first move, taking a leap forward, putting all your energy into forward thinking, and it's inspiring to be someone who's a goal getter, and being proactive, but it's a total waste if all of that stuff isn't towards something which is worthwhile. So that being said, you might find yourself in a place where it's kind of like a circle, maybe running for something that you want, getting there and getting upset about the fact that it didn't go the way you wanted, it wasn't what you thought it was going to be once you got there. Or, oh, what a big waste of time, like being regretful about something, wasting a lot of energy on something, and then in turn wasting more energy about getting upset over it. And because we had this one before, which is very isolated and on your own, the Knight of Swords, he's someone who understands the world in a very intellectual point of view. He's got very good communication skills, and he's the kind of person who can form very like solid arguments and opinions on stuff which is important. Like, he engages with others who have similar skills so that he can share his point of view, they can share their point of view and develop on new points of view together. Like, he works best when he bounces off other people. Basically, he has good communication skills, and he has that driven buzz to find other people who are driven and buzzed to make fire happen. So I think the biggest piece of advice I would say to take from that is to plan more, think ahead more, think of the possible situations that could come from something which you're working towards, and even go as far as doing like a situation A, situation B, situation C. So, you know, when I graduated, I knew that it could possibly end in a really good job opportunity, which I couldn't have got if I didn't graduate. I also knew that was definitely not a possibility too. There's a lot of people who have graduated but can't find jobs. So I knew that maybe it would end up in me being in lots of debt. But of course, I had a degree on my back, and I could just find something simple to work for now, and then go into something later. And then the last possible outcome of getting a degree is ending up not ever wanting to do it. Like, maybe I get there, you graduate in 3 years time, so I knew that I might get to 3 years and be like, well, I actually want to be a carpenter. So what I'm saying here is always be prepared for all the outcomes. And try, even though it's good to have that like energy of the Knight of Swords, be careful. Channel it in a more productive and intellectual way, and also too fixed on something as well. Be more maybe open with it, and be open to kind of going against the grain. Sometimes things don't go out the way we want them to, and that's all right. Sometimes it's a challenge to challenge ourselves to work against that grain and really show our true colors and really make us understand what we're made of. So with work now in the Tower card, you have the Knight of Wands. We've got loads of Knight energy. So the Wands is, as you can see here, it's about fire. So Wands is about enthusiasm, drive, again, a bit like the Knight of Swords, but the Wands is more about the seed of an idea. It's an idea at the very beginning. It hasn't become anything yet. Whereas Swords is more about communication and swiftness. Whereas the Knight of Wands, he represents opportunity. That's what the Wands are about. It's the start of a seed. It's the potential at the beginning. So seeing this with the Tower, I mean, see it as the beginning, because he's the Knight. It goes Knight, King, Queen. So the Knight is the beginning of Wands, ideas. So the beginning of ideas. It's the fire, it's the potential, it's the start of new opportunities. And I think that goes hand in hand with the Tower card, because this is breaking down a current opportunity and bringing in a new. The Knight also brings with him change and passion, and I'm going to do a stab in the dark and say he will probably bring you a new opportunity that's more creative, more driven, having new ideas all the time, being able to feel quite like creatively stimulated. And if you're not in a job that makes you feel like that now, then he's kind of saying he's giving you that, and you will find that, and you will feel more creatively driven. You will be more like the Knight of Wands, who is telling you to consider other options. Don't just quit though. He will support you in the process. Even if you don't believe it, he will be there. When you feel the Tower card kicking in your life, just say out loud, Knight of Wands, give me that power. Give me that power. He also does represent a little bit of travel, because in the traditional deck, that this one, he is represented on a horse, so that any horse card means travel or movement or some kind. So there might be some sort of connection to do with more travel when it comes to future work. For you, it might not be as close to home. It might be physically going somewhere a bit further out than you were before. And this is the kind of card that would come up when someone's doing a lot of job interviews right now. He's seeking for new work. This is the kind of card that will say, he's coming, it will be good news to you, you will benefit. This is a positive card, so seeing a positive card next to a negative one is always really good, because it just represents like there is good stuff that comes out of shit. Even though I knew that anyway, this is just kind of like reassuring you to say there is light at the end of the tunnel and you will reach that light. You will be busy, it won't be an easy process, you'll have a lot to do, there will be a lot of creating new things, getting a move on. Only negative thing that I think comes with this card is sometimes you're going to be too busy. There's not really going to be time to rest, time to think. You could risk a burnout from doing that, so make sure you do schedule in some downtime when you're in the middle of this Knight of Wands kind of energy. So make sure you do give yourself some self-care whenever you possibly can, even if that means taking a 20-minute bath whenever you can, or putting on a face mask, making a cup of tea. Like, schedule in that downtime because it's very important, but at the same time you've got some of this drive, and I think that drive that maybe you were using in some areas that maybe made you quite regretful about something else, I think you can channel that into maybe work, and I think that it will serve a much better purpose there. Because the Tower just in general represents change, so if you don't physically kind of be pushed out of the Tower, if you don't actually find yourself having to leave the job even if you didn't want to, I feel like having this card against this one could even represent you more so actually pushing yourself out of that Tower, telling yourself that there's other opportunities, it's kind of daring you to think about the skills and talents that you should be working on instead, having a backup plan over the one that, choosing the backup plan over the one that you're currently taking part of in and start a new pathway, pave out a new direction with this new sense of idea, this new spark. Something awaits you, an opportunity awaits you, okay? Now I'm just going to pull out the last two quite quickly because I realize I've been talking so much, and this is usually just the quick part of the reading, but oh, that's hilarious. Right, so we got the Nine of Pentacles, which is very similar to the Ten of Pentacles, and we spoke about how that represented comfort a lot of the time, and look what you've gone and got for the same position, the Comfort card. The Nine of Pentacles is also about abundance. It's about enjoying what you've kind of built for yourself, enjoying comfort, sit back and relax, enjoy luxuries, the pleasures of the good life. It's money, leisure time, fun, material, comfort, and it's rest as well. It's well-deserved rest. And the main difference though, I think, with this one is the Nine of Pentacles represents independent wealth as well. Obviously we've got this that's around lots of people, and it's a very community feeling card. This one's on your own, there's no other people in this one, so it is focused so much on being able to financially support yourself on your own, not having other people to depend on. And I think that is like the key point, I think, in this reading, that once you start working towards that and start aiming for that as your new like mission, and once the seeds start coming out and things start growing from those intentions that you put out and say like, I want to bring this into my life, and then you put the action in and then they start happening, that is going to be like the turning point of your life. And I feel like your entire life will just change the minute that happens. And I think this kind of says, you know, there's new challenges out there, there are new setbacks that are coming in. Clearly we've had a look at those. The void you're going to experience will not be fixed by the challenges, but the rewards will help you be content. So in fact, see your relationship space as your kind of support right now. Really fully focus on that when things kind of hit the pan, or not necessarily hit the pan, because I don't want to keep saying it as if these two cards are negative. Just listen to what other people have to say use your relationships as your comfort blanket if you can and when you can. And when things get a little bit tough and maybe you step out your comfort zone a bit more, you start from the beginning, you might get a bit upset every now and again, remind yourself that there's a good support around you. People can be married and miserable. People can be single and happy. People can be married and happy, single and miserable. It's not about your status. It's about how you feel. And this is about self-love, and I feel like that's something you may have been working on recently. And once you kind of have that mindset of things, you start attracting people who are emotionally healthy as well, and that will go hand in hand into the way you see life, and therefore bring you a lot more deep and meaningful connections in your life. And let's pull out your last one for money. Ooh, career choices. 7 of Pentacles. So this is represented by a little newspaper here, and he's circling one of the jobs, I suppose. So this kind of just enhances what I said before. The 7 of Pentacles would be saying that, you know, your past efforts will start determining your future, because it's about like investing wisely, either in, you know, terms of actual traditional investments or in regards to like time and energy. So the 7 of Pentacles doesn't mean like quick short-term fixes. It doesn't mean like gambling or putting loads of money into the lottery. It's about being conservative and thoughtful about where you put your resources, and using that energy of the Page of Swords, I think, will benefit you hugely. It does mean abundance eventually, but the key word here is eventually. This is about patience. So all that being said, I am going to move on, even though this this took a lot longer than I expected it to. Sometimes you do these, whip them all out, and they feel certain and I don't need to go over anything, but other times they can be a little bit more complex, particularly when something like the freaking Tower card comes up. As always, can you please, if you want to, you don't have to, but I really do appreciate it when people are like dead honest and they just tell me like some specifics about some of the stuff I said, even if that means you're like, Ellie, I don't understand, because I just want to know, I want to connect the dots. Once I've sent readings out, all I want now is the dots to be connected. So be honest with me and say, you know, this part was really accurate, however this part was not, and we can talk over email about anything that you want to go over. Now I'm going to do a general Celtic cross spread for you. This goes over many aspects and gives me a really good idea on how things are looking in every part of your life, really, which is why I really love this spread. So the first card is you in the middle of the situation. It's the most prominent card to how you probably feel in the middle of life right now. It's you in the center of it all. So you are represented by the Knight of Wands. Now we've already had him come up, but he came up in this deck, remember. So if you remember the things I was saying about him, it was about having a new idea, the beginning, the start of an idea. And he is quite enthusiastic energy. See the horse? You can actually see the horse in this one. He's got his 2 front legs up and he is about to march. He's about to charge, and he's enthusiastic. He's got a lot of drive. He's ready to charge towards the things that he wants. He has a very good clear idea or something that he wants, and he's ready to go ahead with it. Remember that the Wands is about potential, the start of something new, and it can never happen without the action. It can never happen without the drive of the Knight. The card coming across that is the kind of obstacle, the thing that goes against him, works for him or against him, depending on the feeling of the card. And this is the 4 of Cups. The 4 of Cups doesn't actually come up very often for me, actually. Well, as in for the readings I do for some reason. But the 4 of Cups usually is represented by the word missed opportunity. And sometimes it's about being a little bit ungrateful or not really seeing the situation or the opportunity for what it is, which is very similar to what I was saying about the 9 of Swords, the kind of way she isn't really like looking properly. And if you can see here, he's not really looking properly. I mean, he hasn't got his eyes covered like the other card did, but he's looking down and he's looking kind of a bit glum and sorry for himself. However, right here on his right is a new opportunity. It's a golden cup. It's literally being handed to him through thin air, and he's so fixated on what he's already got, and he's kind of miserable about that he can't even see the new one coming in here. So sometimes this is just not being truly sometimes it's so seeing these two together, he's kind of like charging towards what he wants, he's charging towards the opportunity. Sometimes that means that he misses the journey, he doesn't really see what's on the way, he's so fixated on what's ahead of him, what he wants to get to, that the things that try and come in and put their place into your life get missed when they were supposed to happen, because, you know, you're so caught up on this one frame of mind. And also it can, I said earlier, it can be challenging channeling the enthusiasm in kind of the wrong aspects in your life sometimes. Sometimes it's also about being too fixated on things that you don't have rather than the things that you do. All in all, it's just about being unsatisfied. He's not very satisfied at all, actually. He looks fairly comfortable, but he's not very excited, driven, or anything like that. He's in like a current cycle, and he needs to kind of break out of that. And he's not really also willing to look for what those causes are, and he doesn't necessarily have like a drive or a will to fight for something. And the Cups is an emotional suit, so this is about having the emotion behind something to back it up, to spark it into enthusiasm. What you would say to this card is to start new goals, make new plans, build a new path, and then run through it, run to that path. It's also about taking risks a little bit more. It's getting out of that comfort, getting it out of sitting on the floor with your legs crossed. It's far more better to say, well, at least I tried, rather than, you know, I never know what could have happened, like, what if? And like I said, it's a little bit of an ungrateful card. It's kind of self-absorbed a little bit, because he's in a bit of his own world. He's a little bit, maybe some might say this card has like some depression attached to it. Sorry, my camera's not focusing. Because he's a bit afraid. He's kind of scared to reach out, or he might be, you know, nursing old wounds. He might be very focused on you know, bad, I want to say relationships, because the Cups is about emotion. And this goes with the isolation we had, the home isolation feeling we kind of had earlier. The isolation being more self-imposed. You can take, you know, the kindness and the good things of the universe, because this kind of card shows more so that your isolation from the world and you being alone is starting to bring more physical problems towards your life and the world that you're creating. You know, with that Ten of Swords card we had earlier, she was very much in her head, and it was the Suit of Swords, so it's, you know, much more about being stuck in the mind and not actually about anything physical. This though shows much more about how it's actually physically now intruding in your life, and how emotionally also it's keeping you out of the loop with people, those close to you. And also this Cup will soon represent regret if you continue to either, I don't know what he's supposed to be, if he's supposed to be asleep or if he's just supposed to be you know, pouting kind of thing. So that card we had with her up at night can sometimes be a very regretful card, of course. So you might end up getting upset about something that you once missed. So make sure you're not missing anything, and make sure you're very awake, because that gets in the way of this. If you heard me describe him earlier and you were like, that doesn't sound like me, then the chances are probably because you've got a lot of this energy also going on too. And it's really important for you to kind of embrace, like, awaken that. And remember, we had that quote, sometimes you need to be shaken to awaken. Sometimes the shitty things do need to happen to kind of get us out of his state of mind. So that being said, let's look at your root card. This is the reason why things are the way they are. You've got the Justice card. The Justice is about truth, it's about balance, it's about karma, and there's just so much attached to this card. So as a root position though, I feel that I get the feeling of, once again, putting in enough to get out. Karma is about receiving what you give, so putting yourself in a place where maybe it's all about your own self, it's not as open and giving. You're not going to ever feel the, like, reap the rewards of that. And depending on how the other card looks, we'll know whether will understand that card a bit more, because justice needed to be served somewhere, and depending on how the rest of the cards look, I will kind of understand whether justice was served for you or whether it wasn't. We'll look at your hopes, wants, fears and desires, the kind of card that you think about a lot of the time. It's at the top of the deck of the spread, and this is actually the Eight of Pentacles. The Eight of Pentacles, he's about hard work. He's putting the time into something. He's perfecting the thing. Oh, Christ. He's perfecting what he's working on. He's working very hard, and he's working towards the goals, towards the things that he wants to build for himself, towards the world that he wants to manifest. So this is also about patience. So you're putting a lot of energy and effort into waiting for something, you know, putting in the craft, sure, maybe the very fine details, which is good. This is a good kind of card to get, because his work is always paid off, that's for sure. We'll keep looking at all the cards because it's easier to assess everything after we've seen them all, but I do like going through them one by one. In your past position, we have the Four of Pentacles. He's very much about control, holding on to all of the things he possibly can. He's sometimes a bit of a stingy card. He doesn't let go of his money. He's not very giving of his money because he hasn't got a lot of it. Well, he does have a lot of it, but he's built these coins for himself. He's kind of holding on to them, and now you're in a space where you want to build more of them, maybe because of the fact that you've had to be so stingy, and you've had to hold on to whatever you have because you don't have like as much as maybe that you want. And it's also not only about holding on to your money. This can just be about having a sense of control of your life. He's got one on his head because he's like so worried about letting go of that one. He wants every single pentacle he's got to be touching his body because he desires control. He doesn't want to let go of the things that could possibly roll away or someone could take or something like that. And the important thing is to remember with these cards, most people say like, oh, what's the point in knowing the past? But the reason why the past cards need to come through is because they need to tell us why they are relevant to us now, because anything that's happened in the past serves a purpose for us now. And also this kind of energy that happens in the past is still affecting us now. There's a reason for it coming through. So much want for control in the past is affecting your current situation. That result of maybe pettiness or greed or maybe like just an overall lack of vision is putting you into the place that you are now. And I feel like these two people are very, very similar in their way of seeing things. You know, he's holding on to the stuff that he's got as much as he possibly can. He's still doing the same. He's not holding on to it, but he's so fixated on things he's already got that he's not willing to bring anything else in. I would suggest to try to look back at maybe your younger self or a world where you kind of felt the fear of losing everything, because there's a bigger world with like endless possibilities there for the taking, but were overlooked. And that's such a massive part about what you've got in the now, okay? And that's so important. You can have more. You can't desire more, but then not truly seek it, not truly like prepare yourself for it. Because even though I say like, oh, I'd love to be a famous singer, I wouldn't, but I'm just saying, if I don't have the power in me to truly understand how to get that and how to hold that and find that and grab that and seize the moment if it ever pops up, and I don't have the confidence to say yes when it does pop up, then stop dreaming because it's pointless. Future now, let's look into what we have coming up. The Queen of Swords. The Queen of Swords also is about telling the truth, getting to the heart of the matter. She's about communication. So she's the type to kind of sit there and be like, this is the way it is and this is what's going to happen from that. Like, she's got a lot of experience. She kind of knows the way the world works. She's quite good with giving advice, but in quite a stern way. Some people can kind of see her as a little bit rude at times, but she's not. She speaks the truth. She might have a bit of a sharp tongue, but she does have her hand out like this, and that is supposed to represent, even though she does talk the talk, like she can be quite like, whoa, like did the Queen of Swords just say that? She also is a giving like person. Her hand's supposed to represent she has some kindness there. It's not just completely like matter of fact and rude. The Queen of Swords in the future, she can sometimes be about making a decision, and if there is anything where you are hoping to find out from this reading about a decision or sense of direction that you'll be moving into, then she's a good omen, because she says she represents you and she's mature and she makes the correct decisions. She makes the right moves. She moves in the right pathway. And because she's a queen, she sits on a throne, so sometimes she can say achieving some form of mark of education, or like having a sense of authority somewhere, raising yourself above other people, pretty much, when it comes to her, particularly with obviously those that you associate with in the present. So you rise kind of above a sense, in a sense. She's a symbolism of who you will become. She will be mature, she will be wise. She does lack a little bit of empathy, because like I'm saying, she can be very like truthful. She says it as it is. She doesn't necessarily think about how someone's going to feel when you tell them how it is. So you'll have influence, but not necessarily be very approachable. Honestly, just check in with yourself and ask yourself whether, when you get to that point, like I'm talking, this is like 6 months time, ask yourself whether you would benefit a bit more if you are less so of that. It's good to be wise, but maybe it's good to kind of embrace the more emotional side of yourself and be prepared to kind of stand out, because you probably will for whatever reason very soon. She also represents completion, so this means that whatever happened in the past is now going to be complete. She says the choices that you're making, or you will make, sorry, on this path is going to lead you to some good opportunities, a good future, a better future, and you'll walk away from anything now with so much wisdom and knowledge that you'll carry on through forever. You've got as your attitude and approach towards the situation, you have the Four of Wands. This is a very, this is like a wedding. This is, yeah, this is like a ceremony. So it's a celebration. It's usually a wedding represented card, and it's a very nice feeling. It gives me kind of like fairy tale vibes every time I look at this. It looks like the end page of a fairy tale book. So your approach towards things, you want a sense of like unity, community, and family is so important to you. Whether that's your own or starting with someone, relationships. Your best cards you've had in both of your spreads were about family and people around you. And I'll be very surprised if I was wrong in saying that isn't your main drive towards doing things, that isn't your main focus. And you could say like, oh well, everyone thinks about the family. Well, not necessarily, because not a lot of people do things for other people, like for their family. Like you might choose to work on your career so you can build a family. Like that's never been about why I've wanted to make money necessarily, right now anyway. Or you might physically want to do it to make your family happy, or you might want to raise the funds so you can get married. Like, do you know what I'm saying? This is very focused on other people and a unity of some sort. The environment around you, the people around you, this is either work, home, friends, lovers, anything, is the Queen of Cups. So this I feel like this may be physically, actually the Queen is representing somebody else in your life. So she is, as you can see, she is surrounded by water. She's even got some water that's like flowing up into her like cape or whatever it is she's wearing, because she's very emotional. She's the Queen of Cups as well. The cups is the emotional suit, so she's the queen. She's the queen of emotions. She's highly intuitive. She's very sensitive. And this is someone who is in touch with emotions, subconsciousness, the universe. She's compassionate, she cares deeply, she's a great friend, spouse, parent. So there's someone very dominant in your life who's a woman or has feminine kind of attributes, who is inspiring to you and you look up to, who you go to, who you care about. And she has a lot of focus and drive. Like the first thing I see when I look at this card is how like intensely she's looking at that card. She's ruled by emotions, art and creativity. She gets lost in her own world though. Sometimes she's kind of prone to fantasy and lacks motivation in a sense, because the cup suit is so much about like feeling. Sometimes there's not a lot of action, it's just kind of all the feels, and it's water as well. So if you're a water star sign, for example, you kind of have that probably as well. You kind of get lost in your own little bubble sometimes. So it's really lovely that you have that sense around you of appreciation, whether that's you to this person or this person to you. Someone's appreciated, somebody around you is understanding, giving, spiritual maybe. She's empathetic, she's reflective, and and sometimes even she's got psychic powers, but she's quite different to how you're going to find yourself in the near future. So if I were you, to kind of get that balance back, to kind of yeah, to bring in a bit more empathy, only because I feel like everyone needs that, and I don't feel like too much of this is healthy. It's good to get balance. Stay around this woman to help that come back in. Explain to her what you're doing in life and how you're doing it and how you're approaching things, because she might be able to kind of tap you on the shoulder a bit and be like, hey, don't lose yourself, like remember to be full of insights. And she's all about feeling, so the Queen of Cups might be able to teach a little thing or two to the Queen of Swords about how to feel more, without even needing to see sometimes. Right, your advice position, which is my favorite position every time, is the Page of Pentacles. You've got so many court cards: Knight, Queen, Queen, Page, so you've got a lot going on, a lot of energy changing. The Page of Pentacles as advice, he is the baby of all of them: Page, Knights, Queens, Kings. He's the start of abundance. He's the beginning though. He's the very beginning process of building a financial future. So for you, in advice, I would say an open-minded person around you might be able to look at the situation with fresh eyes, and I feel like once again that might be referring to her. So really speak up to other people. We've already spoken about that before, so I won't repeat myself. There is some sort of course of action that's going to harmonize what you want with what is currently possible to you, and he's about intellectual knowledge. He speaks a lot about studying your chosen field, and this is probably like the new, you know, that Knight of Wand energy, where it's like a new idea, a new enthusiasm to do with something that's fresh from the ground. It's about gaining the intellectual knowledge. You know, listen to the stories of other people, and we spoke about that. Going and hearing advice and life lessons from other people who have already got the thing that you want is better than making the mistakes yourself. What is that quote? It's better to learn the mistakes from others than what's better than learning the mistakes of your own is to learn the mistakes. I don't know what I'm saying, but seek out other people that are in a cushy position that you're inspired by, because it's about kind of hearing what worked for other people and then going down the route that you feel would have worked better for them. Like I'm saying, when someone says this didn't work because I did it like this, be like, ooh, so what about this way? And if someone says something worked well in this route, you can say, well that's inspiring. I'm going to do what they did, but I'm going to make it even better by putting my own twist on the situation, making the outcome different to me and better to me, in my opinion, from changing up a few things that I've heard from other people that work. It's not enough to dream is the main thing that comes of him. He is like glaring at this thing in front of him, and he's holding it up into the air, and he's like almost mesmerized by it. But you need to stay, it's good to have his focus, stay focused on a goal, commit to it, but it's not enough just to daydream about it on top of a hill all day long. And that is a frequent thing we've been having in your reading over and over. And he favors education. Page is about learning. It's the beginning of a journey, so it's about learning and signing up for a class, taking a course, investing time and energy into learning a new skill. So there's definitely newness coming in for you, and it can be learning while you work as well. You don't have to quit a job or something in order to educate yourself, or it can be an apprenticeship or an internship, and it's just about taking the first step. It's planting that seed and tending to it until it grows, having the patience. And he is the kind of person who if a job opportunity or a money venture or something comes up, the Page of Pentacles advises to go for it, and he'll be the first into the situation because he knows there's tons of potential with it. This is kind of how you are right now, so he's advising you to snap out of that and open your eyes and see something for what it is, because it's lurking and it's waiting and it's going to be amazing. And if you're interested in a particular path but you don't feel like you're in that zone yet, speak up, write an email. He's also suggesting communicating an interest in something. Make that phone call you've been thinking about. Communicate, it's going to open a door. Make sure you're truly ready. Make sure the foundations are concrete, because we spoke earlier about having that like energy sometimes into something which doesn't have like a plan A, B and C, D afterwards. So make sure it's feasible and it's concrete. And your far future card is the Five of Swords. So this sometimes can represent some form of of fight. There's determination in his eyes, like he's grabbed these swords and these other sorry, these other people are walking away from him because he probably stole those swords from them. So it can be sometimes a bit of betray in this, but it is competition as well. Other people have walked away because he's held onto their swords and he's kind of stolen those swords. So this can be a mix of hope and a mix of a warning for you. A situation at present is probably controlling you. Will probably soon be like crushed, I don't know if that's the right word, by your sort of like determination to be independent and on your own. As you can see here, he's leaving all those people behind him. He's grabbing onto their swords. So I don't really know whether a lot of other people agree, other tarot readers agree on this, but this card is one of the most complicated to understand. But in a nutshell, I would describe this as kind of like a hollow defeat of some sort, because he's kind of grabbed those swords from other people. He's won, effectively, the one in the front. He's got all the swords, but as you can see, there's people walking away. They are kind of defeated, they're sad, they've been upset. They've been in some sort of fight and he has won, but it's not necessarily a nice feeling card, is it? Because it feels a bit dirty. It doesn't feel like bright and yellow and colourful. I like yellow cards. They always feel the nicest to me. This one kind of feels a bit like rotten. I feel like he wants all the control. He wants it to go his way or the highway. So I do feel like, once again, having this after the Queen of Swords, it's about connecting back into that empathy sorry, I'm joking, mode, and being in touch with other people emotionally. Get in touch with your kind of emotional side too. Don't neglect that. And also, swords are usually swift and quick action. It's things that happen quite quickly. It's a strike of action and it's done in the heat of the moment, usually in anger, in haste, without thought of consequences, which lead to remorse, regret, shame, humiliation, blah blah blah. What do you feel you need to win but doesn't make you feel like you won anything? That's the sort of thing that this card would ask you, because that's what it connects with the most. It's not necessarily a good kind of win. Not all wins and victories and successes are good successes, and that's why I find this card very difficult to understand, because that's not very common. Like, I don't feel like most people relate winning something as a bad thing. 5 of Wands is kind of your biggest illusion in life. It could be some sort of belief or attitude or ideal situation. Words, because swords is about words, communication, as a defensive sort of stance, or some way that makes you feel you've gotten the better of someone or something, and it's kind of a need to win at all costs. And it could also be a belief that may not necessarily be true or right, but because you believe it, you will war with words and make remarks, cutting remarks, that kind of thing. And we had the Justice here in your root, so this kind of ties back to the beginning of this reading, because the Justice card, he is the Karma card, and he says if things don't feel right and you're not doing things right and they don't feel morally correct and right to you right now, they will come back. So make sure things are truthful and correct right now. Make sure things feel like you're confident in knowing that if karma could see your situation right now, they would serve you correctly. And because the root, him as the root card, is kind of saying that the series of consequences happening right now is down to whether things were morally done correctly in the first place. He's giving you what you served, and he will also assess your situation and make sure that things are well balanced and that swords are used in a correct way. As you can see, he's holding a sword very similarly to her. Like, the sword almost looks very similar on both of those cards. Now, this is you in the future, remember. He also, on the other hand, holds some scales. This is more concrete. This feels more matter of fact. And sure, justice can be as well. Like, if we're looking in courtrooms, for example, they can be very matter of fact. It's just the way things are. But with courtrooms and legal matters and stuff, there is an actual person emotionally involved in it. Sometimes there's situations in court where you have to actually physically think in somebody's shoes, or you have to be like more morally connected to the situation, make some more like moral based decisions on the issue, on the matter. I went way over the time I was supposed to. My timer went off ages ago, and the reason why I set a timer off is because I talk so much. I really hope this helped. Be very specific in your email if you have the time and you want to, please, because I appreciate going over any bits that didn't make any sense to you, reassessing the cards, and having a look into what they could have meant if the original reading I gave you didn't make a lot of sense, because I'm still learning, and of course you telling me more specifics on the cards help me understand what cards could mean for other people. So and also if I was going in the wrong direction, they can teach me what a card actually means rather than the kind of wavelength I went down. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Kelly, and I hope you have a lovely week. Sorry for taking so long to do this, by the way. It doesn't help that I take so long to actually do the reading. Now I've got to edit it up and export it, which will take even longer because it's a long reading. Goodbye, and I hope you follow all the advice I gave you, and best of luck.